The games are over.
The game is over.
And now it's time to look back at what went right and what went wrong. This is your Sunday morning podcast with Hans Olsen, Scotty G, and Lloyd Cole on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, it is time for your Sunday morning podcast. Scott, Garrard, Hans Olsen. We hope to hear from Lloyd Cole here momentarily, but Hans.
Good morning.
Yeah, how you holding up, man?
Good morning.
How was Lubbock?
Dude, my voice is just hacked. I did not sleep well. Scotty and I are recording this at, 4:30, almost 5 o'clock in the morning back there, right?
Yep.
It's 5:30 here. Well, how am I feeling? Headache, raspy voice, dried out lips. We had a blowing wind, man. It was 20-mile-per-hour wind, 27-mile-per-hour gusts, and we were up in the booth with open air, and the wind and the dry air it just hammers you for 4 quarters. And I could tell, man, it was hammering the BYU players and the BYU coaches, and it was brutal, Scotty. I mean, what an environment, though. I don't know if I've ever seen a better college environment. It was wild. Fans were insane. ESPN Game Day was crazy, and as we walked across the bridge that goes over the freeway, it overlooked all of the ESPN Game Day set, and there were thousands of people that were stacked in there going absolutely berserk. And we were 3 hours out from kick, and they let people in 2.5 hours before kick. So you had stands that were jam-packed and people waving their towels, and it was crazy, man. It was 3 hours of craziness, Scotty.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you knew you were going into a hotbed there. You knew a bit of a hornet's nest, and Texas Tech, much like that game against Utah, and I need to take a longer look at this thing and really kind of go into it a bit, but because I was traveling back from Dallas when most of this game was being played, but was it bully ball? Was it much like Utah? I mean, did they just dominate line of scrimmage?
Did you make it back in time, buddy?
I did. Yes.
Oh, good for you. And I know that you had a real arse whooping to talk about here in a little bit. That had to feel good, huh?
Oh, yeah. No, that was nice. Bronco was as much as Bronco could be happy, Bronco was happy after that
one. I tell you, dude, the more I get to know that guy, the more I love him.
Same. 100%.
You asked if it was bully ball. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was very fine, technically sound defense that had, very disciplined lane rushing. They didn't have a sack until like the final drive of the game, Scotty. So Texas Tech really didn't get to Bachmeier that much. Now, the 2 turnovers that Bachmeier gave were under pressure. One was a quick pressure. He scrambled out, tried to throw back across his body, broke a couple of tackles to get into a position where he could release the ball, threw back across his body, and then, hey, guess who? Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah.
That dude is such a nightmare. And then the second turnover, really that was a dagger. He got pressured and ended up lateraling it back to L.J. Martin. and it hit the ground, and Texas Tech was able to cover. But no, it really wasn't bully ball. What it was perfect discipline, excellent execution, and great personnel, very intelligent personnel. They had a fantastic game plan put together for Bear Bachmeier, Scotty. Totally focused on him. Third down, it was 3rd and 13, and Roderick called in one of those quarterback draws that Bear Bachmeier's hit so many times, and he gets the snap and starts to come out of his set, and there's 2 Texas Tech guys right there like, oh, hey, look at that. Film study worked. Brought him down. They held him to 17 yards rushing. Sorry, he ended up with 12 yards rushing. He couldn't even get out of the backfield most of the time. And what they did is they forced him to pass, and I thought he hit some good passes, and there were some drop balls. You know, we talked to Chase Roberts in the post game, and he was like, yeah, it hit me in the hands. If it hits me in the hands, I got to catch it. Parker Kingston had a couple of drops. So nobody really helped Bear Bachmeier, but I felt like, you know, Aaron Roderick had a max protect game plan. He kept LJ in, kept Chase Ryan in, kept Kean Need, his other tight end, in. And they were chipping down and double teaming and trying to set pockets, but that limited routes. And Texas Tech did a good job of staying over the top on these routes. Chase mentioned that as well. He was like, every time I get over the top, you got a safety that's sitting there ready to bat it down. They did that to Parker Kingston as well on a deep attempt. So it was very disciplined, high-level, ordered football with really good personnel. And they smothered BYU's offense, Scotty. It just, you know, I felt like they were just suffocated most of the day.
Well, and, you know, you put the magic number, at 160 in rushing yards, and BYU ends up with 67. And L.J. Martin, 10 carries, 35 yards. Bear Bachmeier, 11 and 12. And so, you know, Rex had 4 for 10. But between those three, just unable to really generate anything. And if you would have told me before the game that Bear Bachmeier attempted 38 passes, I probably would have said BYU's losing that game then.
Yeah, that's not the game plan you wanted. Although I really did like the one drive they scored on. It was that pop passing that I was talking about Arizona State ran against Texas Tech. And it was weird because I thought they would do more of that, Scotty, and it took them until that 2-minute drive in the fourth quarter when they were down by 3 scores or 4 scores at the time. And and it was a little bit too little too late. You know what's crazy about the way this game played out is they had 45 rushing yards in the first quarter. And they were showing gaps and lanes, and LJ was powering through, and Bear Bachmeier had a keep on a fly sweep mesh point where he pulled out of Parker Kingston's stomach and was able to run for a nice first down. And there were just really good rushing moments, and then they had 22 yards the other 3 quarters combined. So Texas Tech was like, well, yeah, I think we can figure this out. And they started hammering down all the lanes. And Rodriguez was great, man. You know, he ended up with 14 tackles, 9 of those solo. He had the TFL. He had the interception. He was all over the place. And he is definitely the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Like, it's not even close. Now, let's talk about some positive things. BYU's defense kept this from being a bloodbath. You know, held Texas Tech to their second lowest output of the year. Arizona State held them to 22. BYU held them to 29. They haven't been under 30 points in any other game this year. And it was crazy, Scotty, because the 3 turnovers that BYU gave to Texas Tech were all either in the red zone or near the red zone.
Yeah.
Another muffed pump by Parker Kingston, buddy. It's like, oh, no. And that was to start the game. They got a really nice stop on Texas Tech early. And they punted, and they punted with the wind, and it went over Parker's head, and he was backing up and out of position, and it hit off his chest and right near the sideline, and Texas Tech covered it like at the 15 or 20 or 22, somewhere in there. And that was just the start of it. So they had 3 turnovers either in or near the red zone. They had multiple drives to the red zone, and BYU's defense bowed up and forced, I want to say, 4 field goals or 5 field goals in that game. Here, I'll look it up really quick. They ended up with 5 field goals. They forced 5 field goals, and that really stopped a lot of the bleeding. Jack Kelly was a freak. A freak, Scotty. He was on his points in coverage. He had 3 PBUs that he was locked up with tight ends, locked up with running backs, locked up receivers. And I'm talking about goes and corner routes. He had one in the end zone that was beautiful. He had 2 sacks in this game that were pure rush sacks. They were actually coverage sacks, some great cover. As soon as Morton would wiggle in the pocket, Jack Kelly would just beeline it for him and hit him a couple of times. I'm sorry, my voice is just gone from yesterday. Hit him a couple of times and just about wrecked Morton. Some beautiful bull rushes, forced an incompletion, took an offensive guard straight back and put him in Morton's lap and forced an incompletion on a 3rd and 10 that gave the ball back to BYU. He was absolutely beautiful. Glasgow was gorgeous again. He had a beautiful sack, kind of an end around off of another green dog where he read Morton. If Morton moved out of the pocket, Glasgow came around off the edge and got a really nice sack. He had 10 tackles. He had another TFL outside of his sack that was awesome. So a lot of great defensive play. I was really happy with the defense. But this is the heartbreaker, dude. The special teams they just showed up flat, man.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier in the week, Hans. Like the special teams, like when you get a game with these guys that are as close as they are, the way that they play, usually it comes down to something like that, and not just one mistake, but multiple mistakes by Utah or by BYU in that game.
Oh, dude. This is the first half. You had the muffed punt to the turnover. You had a shanked punt for, I think it was like 22 or 24 yards. You had another shanked punt, and you had you fielded it on a kickoff. You fielded it at like the 1 yard line off the bounce and got out to like the 12 or the 15 yard line. Like there were so many miscues on the special teams, and that is not typical of Kelly Popinga's group. They showed up flat, and they just didn't help. They didn't help the cause. So against Texas Tech, you're right. You had to have the special teams clicking. You had to be at least square in the turnover margin. You were -3.
Yeah.
You can't win that game. Special teams didn't show up. You're -3 in takeaways, and your offense just couldn't find its identity and its flow. I do feel like Bachmeier was bottled up a little bit too much. You know, you're running so much max protecting. You're trying so hard to protect him. And that's really limiting your routes. And when they did run a 5-on-4 pocket, 5 offensive linemen on 4 downs, there were a couple times, man, they hemmed him up, and there were completions and some nice movement. But I understand it. I totally – that's the funny thing. Like when I'm watching Aaron Roderick call a game, because I've known him since 1997, I think, 96 or 97. I've known him forever. And I just know his offensive flow. When I'm watching him call a game, I know exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it. And I see it, and I agree with it. And so I'm like, man, because I talked about it all week, Scotty. I said, you got to run max protect. You got to make sure these DNs don't kill Bachmeier. You got to make sure that you hold off the pressures. You got to make sure you set a pocket. And how do you do that? You keep extra blockers in, and if you see the sets, then you get a 5-on-4, and you go for it. But So I totally see why Roderick was doing it, but I do feel like it just forced Bear Bachmeier into a bit of a shell. He was never really able to open up and unleash on this Texas Tech defense.
So let's say BYU runs the table and we see a rematch in Arlington between these two teams. How do you feel like, I mean, just based on the fact that there were a lot of unforced errors by BYU in this game that put them behind the 8 ball, plus Texas Tech was playing out of their mind. So do you get the sense if these two teams go round 2 that it could be different, or is Texas Tech at another level?
It could be different. How many points did I tell you BYU needed to score through the week?
You kept saying
28.
28, yep.
28. Texas Tech ended up with 29, but if BYU gets to 28, at least one of those field goal drives is stopped, slowed up. Don't have enough time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So 28 points is the number. And I think it would be the number in the championship as well. So Aaron Roderick, figure it out, man. Go get 28. If you go get 28, BYU's defense can match up. If you go get 28, Kelly Popinga's group is going to show up. If you go get 28 with your true freshman quarterback, you find a way to go get 28 points. You could avenge this loss. You make sure that you're at least square in the turnover margin. You let Bear Bachmeier work a little bit. Get L.J. Martin just a little bit more healthy. He was, I wouldn't say he was timid. Some of the usage slowed up, and there were some different personnel rotations. They had Nawahine in, and they brought in Preston Rex. And get L.J. where he can take the 24, 25 snaps a game. And you can match up with this team, and you can get them. And, you know, Scotty, I feel the same about the University of Utah. If the University of Utah finds a way to get there with Texas Tech, I feel like the University of Utah could figure out a way to get a win over Texas Tech. They're so well coached, they're disciplined, and they got great personnel. They're not unbeatable. Arizona State exploited them.
Yeah.
Arizona State put together the game plan. Now I know that they had Will Hammond and Baron Morton is a different beast, but Baron Morton was sacked 4 times, Scotty. Like the pressure was on him. You can get to Baron Morton. You can sack Baron Morton. He only was 17 of 32. 17 of 32 for 219 yards.
Wow.
If Utah's defense stops up gaps, Cameron Dickey had 121 rushing yards against BYU. They ended up with 150 yards and a touchdown on the ground. If you can stop up their run, get to Baron Morton, I think you can keep them to 20, anywhere from 27 to 24 points. Now just go get me 28. That's all I ask.
Yeah. But that's the question. Like, I feel a lot better about BYU limiting Texas Tech offensively than I do about BYU scoring against that Texas Tech defense. Because you look at 28 and you get that 7, and that 7 came pretty late in the game. Like, I'm worried about BYU's ability to score points at a high level against this team.
Yeah, there's definitely that feel, and I have some concerns of it as well. I also don't know how much better Texas Tech's defense really is than Utah's.
Yeah.
And BYU found 24 points on that Utah defense.
That's fair.
They found 41 points on Iowa State's defense. I just feel like if you're telling me you can't get to 28, then I would have to take that back and say, well, then the matchup probably has the same type of outcome, at least the win-loss margin. But they really did have a hard time getting to Texas Tech's red zone. They had a hard time getting on Texas Tech's side of the field. So I can understand the frustration. The 2-minute drive that did go and score, that's one thing you got to take a look at and just say, all right, maybe we throw a no-huddle wrinkle in here and we try some hurry up and we try to see if we can catch Texas Tech softening up off the press on these receivers and hit some of these underneath routes, because that's what they were doing. And that's what they did to Arizona State. And you got to see if you can exploit that.
So BYU's got to regroup, and coming from a former player standpoint, Hans, when you suffer a loss like this, and that's the thing, like us in the media, the guys that haven't played at that level, sometimes we latch onto cliches, and we don't know if they're actually true or not, but we like to say them anyway. And so I always like getting your opinion on this, because sometimes you'll be like, yo, no, that's true, and then other times you're like, no, that's garbage, that's trash, that doesn't exist. So how concerned or how real is the issue of a hangover loss? Because we saw it with Utah a year ago. They lose to BYU and then they lose the next game. Same thing with BYU last year. They beat Utah and then they lose their next game. So emotionally it seemed like it can get you out of whack. How concerned are you about that with BYU going into next week's game?
Pretty concerned. I talked to Tanner Wall in the post game. I asked him, what did you take away from last year where you lost to Arizona State, lost to Kansas, and lost your chance at the Big 12? And Tanner said, I think back to that, and I feel like we were playing to not lose. And he said, we've got to play these next 3 games to win. Get everything we got to go win. So a lot of these guys on this team have that experience of being 8-0, 9-0. All they had to do was go 3-1 or 2-2 actually last year, 2-2 to finish in the 4. And they struggled to be able to seal up the Big 12 championship. So they've all learned the pressures that come along in the back part of the Big 12 chase. I'm just hoping that they are able to find some level of preparation, some level of mentality that they can instill and find a way to get over that hump. Because I got to finish 3-0 to be able to truly control their destiny at this point.
Because I also think it could go the other way. Like, this galvanizes this team, and they come out and they play. Like, it could go the other way where BYU ends up being, I don't want to say a better team for it, but a team that's a lot more focused. They're like, okay, guess what? Now we're not the America's darling. Now ESPN's not showing up and doing all this stuff for us. They're all focusing on Texas Tech. So let's just regroup, circle the wagons, and let's go finish this thing and get these guys in Arlington.
Well, that's what Utah did.
Yeah.
They lost to BYU, and all of a sudden they've become this juggernaut that feels like it's got insane momentum, and it's a tough Boulder stop. I've liked how BYU or how Utah has really circled the wagons and figured some of their issues out, and I'd like to see BYU do the same. To that point, Scotty, I do think that this was a big learning curve for Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah.
And I asked Kalani in the postgame, I said, Kalani, what do you take away from this game that your quarterback can learn? And Kalani said, well, what I want receivers to do better for him. I want line to do better for him. I want running to do better for him and help him. And he said, but, obviously Bear Bachmeier under pressure trying to make something happen, it's just not working. You can't do that. And the turnovers were horrible. So Bear will go back, and I was talking to Greg in the post game, and I said, the way he attacked fall camp and attacked that competition, won that battle, seemed to get better every game through 8 games. Like, he's learning from his mistakes and wins. How much can he actually learn in a loss?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How much does that rattle his guts, and how much does that put him in the film room and have him sit there asking questions to Aaron Roderick like, hey, so I ended up throwing this deep go here, I know we were looking at over the top, but is this something that if we see TCU in this lineup, is this something we feel like we can hit? Just having those questions and getting those answers from Aaron Roderick and seeing if he can improve. What we've learned of Bear to this point, Scotty, is he's a smart, caring, intellectual individual that is going to have the questions, and I think he'll have the resolve. So I think, to your point, if I had to guess one way or the other, I would guess he comes back better.
Health-wise, how did LJ look in terms of him coming back from that injury, which frankly felt like he was going to miss some time, and he comes out of nowhere and says, "No, I'm ready to go."
I would say 70%, maybe 75%. The beginning parts of the game, he broke a couple arm tackles and got some extra yards. Like I talked about, 45 yards in that first quarter. He did a lot of good things. And the game plan kind of got away from it as Texas Tech got the lead. You felt more pressed to pass. Aaron Roderick was trying to go to the outsides with some different mesh and some different pitch option, and kind of got away from the interior hits with L.J. Martin, as my mind serves me, if my memory serves me correctly. I would say I felt like he was 75-ish%, maybe 80-ish, and I think he came out of that game unscathed. So now he'll get another week to heal up, and TCU is a good run-stop defense. They're the second run-stop defense in the Big 12. So it's going to be another – they give up 129 yards a game. It's going to be another dogfight for this BYU rushing attack that really has to be successful against TCU.
Well, now, I mean, you had a little bit of leeway to pick up one loss and still find a way into the Big 12 championship. You can't with another loss. 2 losses isn't going to get it done for you. So obviously now the attention to detail has to be at an all-time high. And if you're a Utah fan right now, can't imagine how grumpy you are. The one time you cheer for BYU, the one time you need BYU to come through for you, that you're like, hey, rise and shout, go blue, let's do this, and they let you down.
Yeah, now it turns the other way, Scotty. Now they're hoping that BYU loses 3.
Yep.
So they need TCU to win, and they need Cincinnati to beat BYU. That's where Utah's at right now. And they got to take care of their business and get themselves into at least a 3-man, 2-win race at the end of this season to see if they can get some tie breaks that put them back in that Big 12 championship against Texas Tech. I know Utah wants another shot at Texas Tech, and again, I just don't think that they're an unbeatable crew. I think they're disciplined. I think you are going to have to find a way to push them around, try to punch them in the mouth. But I think Utah's got the personnel to do it too. I think they've got the offensive coordinator to do it. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that we see one of these teams in this state find a way to that Big 12 championship, because I want to see one of these coaching staffs have an opportunity, a shot in a Big 12 championship to go get redemption. And I want to see it again. And I will tell you, Texas Tech's the best team I've seen so far. They're the best team I've seen so far, man. They are cleanly coached.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's one thing to go out and buy the best talent, which Texas Tech did, but it's another thing to have the coaching to go along with it. Because not only are they freaky athletic, but they're coached extremely well too. And so when you got Joey McGuire out there, a high school legend. My Uber driver this morning from our hotel to the airport, he's like, yeah, Joey McGuire coached one of my kids in high school. I'd trust him with anybody, and it's no surprise whatsoever. Like, that guy walks on water in the high school world in Texas, and to be able to make that jump to the Big 12 and to be able to have that kind of an impact on that program and coach a lot of alphas the way that he has and bring in a lot of high-paid players and get them to buy into a scheme, I mean, that shows a lot of credibility with that coaching staff with how they've looked.
Oh, man. Yeah, that staff's got them dialed in. They've got them dialed in. That defensive coordinator has completely flipped this group. You know, we're talking about a group that was, bottom 110s?
Oh, yeah.
In total defense last year. I mean, he's done everything you could ever imagine for a defensive coordinator, and he did it with the right personnel. You know, we were going – I had an opportunity to catch up with Brian Jensen in the pregame, the play-by-play voice for Texas Tech. And we were going through the defensive talent, and he was like, all right, let's start with David Bailey, transferred from Stanford. Let's go to Ramel Height, transfer from Georgia Tech. Let's go to I can't remember, one of the defensive tackles. He's like a transfer from so-and-so. And he was going right down the line, all these transfers.
Rodriguez is homegrown, right?
Yeah, he is. Their leading interceptor was a transfer from maybe North Dakota State or something. And he was like, you know, you go and get all this talent. You put the right guy in charge, and this is what you get. So it's a great job, complete reversal of what this Texas Tech defense was. And when we were walking out of the stadium, I was talking to Mitch Juergens, our sideline guy, and Mitch and I agreed that Texas Tech could be a powerhouse for a long time. You know, they've got the hype and attention and buzz of Patrick Mahomes, who they had out there with the game day crew, and they've got the fan support. Holy cow, man, they've got the fan support. It was the highest ticket in the country for this BYU matchup. They've got the money. They've got deep pockets that just want to see wins. And now they got a coaching staff, so Texas Tech could be good for a long time.
Well, it was good to see Utah State break out last night. I thought seeing what they've been up against and getting just train wrecked in New Mexico, and to see them come out and just put it on Nevada. And Nevada's like, look, after that game, they're 1-8. But if you look at the games they've played, they've got a lot of one-score games. And, I mean, it was a 10-3 game against Boise State a couple of weeks ago. And Boise State ended up pulling away a little bit late. They're dreadful offensively. Like, Nevada is a train wreck on offense. One of the worst offensive teams I've seen in college football in a long time. Defensively, they're actually pretty good. They put up some good numbers. And Bryson Barnes came out, threw a touchdown pass on the first drive, and then it just kept rolling. And that defense played well, forced a bunch of 3-and-outs early on, had a pick six, and Utah State just rolled. And it just felt like, even though the team was 4-4, like there was this dark cloud above Utah State, with just like, oh man, you know, should have won at Hawaii, should have played way better against New Mexico, and it's going to be really hard to find 2 wins. And they made a statement tonight. They're like, no, we're not going away. We're not going quietly into the night. And poor Nevada took the business end of that, because there were a lot of frustrations taken out on this team. Bryson Barnes, another big night, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brady Boyd had 5 catches for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. As I mentioned, a pick six. Utah State didn't turn it over. For the first time this year, they didn't give up a sack. And so
who had the pick six?
Brevin Hamblin, kid from Syracuse, and a transfer from Utah Tech. And 6'5". They got him playing. They'll have him play safety, but he was down on the line a little bit because they knew Nevada couldn't throw the ball. All they could do was really run it, and so he was playing up at the line. And I'll show you this interception. You'll probably see it before we get a chance to talk on Monday. But he goes up and tries, and it looks like he's just going to bat it down. And he said afterwards, he's like, yeah, I went up to bat it down, and then it hit my hands. And he goes, I remember thinking, like, I think I can catch this. And he just rips it out of the air, comes down, and trots in for 40 yards for the touchdown. Wow. And it was good to see. Good crowd. It was good environment. And this team needed something good going their way. And they needed a get-right game, and Nevada certainly was the get-right. The final 51-14, but it was 41-0 at halftime. And, I mean, we were tap dancing through the entire second half because there was really nothing to talk about. And because where did the 14 points come from? They gave up 2 blown coverages in the third and fourth quarters because they were rotating so many guys in. And Brock Purdy, his brother, Cheba Purdy, is the quarterback. And he wasn't the starter, but he came in. He can run the ball really well. Can't throw it a lick. But they had some blown coverages, and he was able to find some guys open. And so they had a couple touchdowns that way. But for the most part, defense had Utah State left their starters in, Utah State wins this game 72-0. I mean, it's just it was that bad. So
just looking at the box score, Tyree Morris had a sack and a half at the defense.
Yeah, Tyree Morris
position.
got in the mix.
Why have I not seen that name, or am I mistaken?
He's a guy that hasn't played a lot, but has been in the rotation. But he came in and had some big moments. It was nice to see. Ike Larson came in, and he had a couple of good sticks in this game. But overall, it was Hamlin's night. He had the fumble recovery at the goal line when it looked like there was going to be another garbage touchdown scored. Across the board, it was about as dominating performance as I've seen from a Utah State defense in a year where they've been much maligned, and they needed that game. And look, they got to find one more, whether it's at UNLV next week, whether it's at Fresno in 2 weeks, or home against Boise State. You just got to find a way to win one. And I know I'm setting the sights a little low, but after all the issues they've dealt with over the last several years and a 4-8 year last year, they get back to bowl eligibility, they carry a lot of that momentum into next season. And if they can retain some guys, they have a chance to be really good. The problem is you lose Bryson Barnes, and I would love nothing more to see Bryson Barnes get another year with this offense, but sadly not in the cards. So they're going to need to find a quarterback, but tell you what, this is a team that's starting to build some things and buy into Bronco, and they just need to find that one win. It's going to be tough, though. They'll be picked to lose every game the rest of the year, but they've just got to find a way to get one of them.
Utah on the bye week, they were sitting at number 13. BYU sitting at number 7. They lose to the number 8 team in the country, 29-7. What does the CFP do?
Ooh, I think BYU takes a tumble. I think
to the number 8 team in the country, huh?
Yeah, but I think people are going to look at that score. They're going to realize BYU didn't score until late, and I'm with you, and I hope I'm wrong, Hans, but I feel like they put Texas Tech and BYU at 7A and 7B, and they said, okay, whoever loses this game is going to take a big drop, and everybody's been waiting all year for that BYU slip-up. Oh, it's the freshman quarterback. They can't get it done. Oh, they haven't played a big-time game yet. Oh, what are they going to do on the big stage? And to lose 29-7, I think there's going to be some people out there to be like, yep, see, we showed you. We told you. We told you all along that they weren't that good. And I'm afraid they're going to tumble. Now, I could be 100% wrong on this, but I'm a little worried about that in terms of how the national media is going to respond to them, especially that college football committee.
Okay, but what do you do here, Scotty? Because it's a one-loss team, and Utah is the third-ranked Big 12 team as a two-loss team, and BYU just beat Utah. Do they fall below Utah?
I think they might, honestly, because the one thing that we look at with the college football playoff committee is that they're going to go, yes, head-to-head. That means something. But also, how are you playing right now? And they'll look at how Utah did against Texas Tech. If they've really done their research, they'll know that, that was a one-score game into that fourth quarter. And I don't know, Hans. I would be a little concerned. Now, here's the great thing about BYU. It doesn't matter. Like, they can still run the table and get right back into that Big 12 title game and have the rematch. So that's the beauty about being in the Big Boy Football Conference is that, okay, people may drop you, but you can still get back into the mix. The at-large thing might be a little bit harder to be involved in, but they still control, for the most part, their own destiny. But I do think they're going to tumble. I don't know. You sounds like you disagree, though.
Well, it just would make more sense to me to drop BYU from number 7 probably down to number 11 or number 12 based on what you're thinking with Utah in the bye week. If you're going to move Utah up and you want to move them to 12 or leave them at 13, but I think it would make more sense to drop a one-loss BYU team just one slot above Utah and have those two duel it out through the next 3 games and just say, all right, you're neck and neck. BYU's got the edge because they're a one-loss team and they've got the head-to-head matchup, but you've both got 3 games left. BYU's got 3 more difficult games as a whole, but Utah is not a cakewalk with Baylor, Kansas State at home, Kansas on the road. It's a tough finish, but I say you leave it there until you get BYU with the second loss, and then you can move Utah up ahead of them. And that's not saying that Utah's not the hotter team right now, because it sure seems to be the case with the way Utah is dismantling teams. But as things spin to what they spun to today, it's looking like the BYU-Utah rematch in the Big 12 championship game is quite a bit less likely.
Yeah, that might, I think that's a pipe dream now, unfortunately.
Yeah, because Texas Tech isn't going to lose.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose these next couple games.
No. By the way, how's the food scene there in Lubbock? You have anything good?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Man, it was excellent. The spread that they had up in the booth was incredible. They had a chopped brisket. They had a pulled pork. And they had this massive spread. So it's the best media room food that I've had outside of BYU's.
Wow.
With Tucanos. It was really good. We went to Mitch and I got in late on Friday, 10:45, 11 o'clock, and we went downtown, big-time college scene, and the roads are packed. I'm talking like wall-to-wall packed. It was as crazy as it was advertised, Scotty. The night before that game was complete insanity, and we found this little pizza bar that's downtown and kind of in the college district, and we went down there, and they sell by the slice, and it's just a nice crispy crust, and it's that crisped up pepperoni, really good, man. We ended up just mowing slices of pizza, and then had the media room buffet, and then we went to this place called Uncle Julio's. It's just a really good kind of Tex-Mex stop here in Texas. And I got the skirt steak fajitas.
Smart.
Yeah, and it was just a great meal. So food was incredible out here. How about you? Did you end up catching up on some good barbecue when you're out?
No, I got in too late, and I thought I would have time to sneak over and get some of that barbecue, but I missed out, and everybody I talked to that went to that mill said it was the best barbecue they've ever had. And remember, we were talking to our guy Kenny Jays, and he was there at that same place 2 nights before, and he said it's the best barbecue he's ever had. And this is a guy who cooks barbecue for a living. So I was beyond bummed out that I missed out on that. But they were actually a little concerned with that basketball team because they said that it was so rich that everybody was gnawing down on these big old, those dino ribs, those beef ribs. And they said that it was just so rich and dense that all the coaches, they were just, they were popped in Peptos like they were popcorn the next day. And they were still feeling it. And they were a little concerned about that laying over the players. But, players are like, you're 18, 19, 20, 21. You can eat anything and you'll be fine. But it did a number on the coaches, that's for sure.
Oh, sounds amazing, though.
I know.
I'm just getting ready to head to the airport right now. I've got an early flight leaving out of Lubbock. And so far, flights look like they're holding, man. Flights held for us to get here.
That thing may have been exaggerated a little bit because I was scared to death, too. And I was leaving at airports way early, and I don't know. If somebody out there did miss a flight, they're like, exaggerated my rear end. I'm dealing with it. But I don't know. It was all good on my end. Sounds like it was good on your end.
Yeah, it's good on my end. Our tech crew, not good.
Oh, really? Okay.
No. No, it was like Kevin's mom trying to get home to Kevin. Like
They're in the back of a truck with a polka band.
They struggled. I want to say they drove 7 hours. Couple cancellations, and their flights canceled this morning. They were on
Are you
Southwest,
serious?
so
Oh.
yeah, their flights. They don't know how they're going to get out of Lubbock. So there's some people definitely affected, but it certainly didn't. It didn't touch the chosen ones, Scotty.
Well, I mean,
We are
when
the
you book,
chosen ones.
I mean, let's be honest here. When you book Southwest, you kind of have it coming.
Southwest is a step up from American, man. American Airlines is the shiz, dude.
Yeah,
It's the worst.
Yeah.
They screwed me back in COVID. Do you remember that whole deal?
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. You lost some.
Oh,
You lost a little bit of money on that thing.
Yeah, I lost about $1,200.
Jeez.
It was miserable, and they would not refund the flights,
Nope.
and they charged us another $200 a ticket to get back out to New York, and I was taking my whole family and my mom, and jeez, dude, it wrecked us. And American Airlines was like, "Sorry, we can't help you."
Sorry. Yeah.
God, dirt bags.
It's like a tire salesman in Brigham City, just out to screw the consumer, man.
Oh man, I think we should talk less about that.
I would agree with that. It's probably for the best. Yeah. Let's maybe move on and less tire talk, more football talk. Hands, safe travels back, my friend. We'll see you on Monday. I was trying to stall a little bit for Lloyd, but I don't think we're going to get him. By the way, shout out to Xavier, who just killed it in his baseball tournament. That's why Lloyd's not with us, because they're traveling all over the place with Xavier in his baseball tournament. So congratulations to the Cole family. Xavier,
All
you're the
the
man.
way to the championship, man.
Yes, sir. Making big
we're proud of
plays
that
right
kid.
and left. Yeah.
He's a
right,
much
Hans.
better baseball player than his dad ever was.
Oh, yeah.
already.
Yeah, absolutely. At 11 years old, he's already better than the old man. All right. I will see you coming up tomorrow, man. Show kicks off at noon. Hans and Scotty. That's your Sunday morning after podcast right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.